The NTT IndyCar Series' newest street race, the Big Machine Vodka Music City Grand Prix weekend in Nashville, is finally here. The highly anticipated debut of the IndyCar Series racing in downtown Nashville on an 11-turn, 2.17-mile track, and 27 cars entered in a bumper grid, one of the largest fields behind the Indianapolis 500. Of course, and to kick things off, here's the first question to you, Josh and Adam. Will the slightly higher car count and tight track sections make qualifying even more critical for tomorrow's race?
Absolutely, because it's a brand new circuit and you have absolutely no idea where the overtaking zones are, how tricky overtaking is going to be, and also what it's going to be like in that midfield pack. Now, where the start line is, it's over the Korean Memorial Bridge. So it's a very, look, you see it on the map there. It's a very tight and twisty section as well to loop back on through turns 4, 5, and 6, which would be the first corners of the race. So if you're starting at the front of the field, the first 3 rows, you're going to get through those corners, fingers crossed, in smooth motions. But if you're starting in the middle of the pack as well, you're going to get bumped up. You're going to have to risk breaking off your front wing, risk damaging more parts of the car that you don't want to. And then you're going to start dropping further back as well when it comes to the pit stops, because the pit lane's very unusual here. It curves around on street corners. It's got a very blind exit as well. So if you're in the middle of the pack, you're going to be running the risk of car damage, suspensions hitting the walls as well, big contact leaving the pit lane. Trust me, the midfield, not the place to be. You definitely want to be always near the front. It's more crucial on a brand new track because there are so many variables. So yes, qualifying that's coming up later on tonight is going to be fantastic, and especially the Fast 9.
When it comes to this track, it's going to be, the qualifying is going to be intense. It's pretty cool to see IndyCar going over the Korean War Memorial Bridge in Nashville. And I believe if you're starting at least in the first 3 rows, you have a shot to win. Looking at the practice sessions from yesterday, you saw people like Colton Herter was up there, Roman Grosjean, and this track has been compared to the Azerbaijan circuit that Formula One uses. I believe there's 6 overtaking places I heard on the broadcast yesterday for practice. So it's going to be an intense street fight. I know the fans have been looking forward to this for a while, and it's pretty cool to see IndyCar running in the Music City of Nashville, Tennessee.
And looking at the track map again, I think qualifying is going to be very important because looking at the first few corners, as you can see right there on the screen, it's very tight. And when I watch practice this year, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a lot tighter than I imagined. And it's really crazy during the first few corners. Those drivers are going to need to be single file going through there, or otherwise it's going to be chaos. To be honest, I'm going to be surprised if we don't have a full course caution with a safety car on the opening lap, because I think it's going to be absolutely bananas. So qualifying is going to be super important. Like you were saying, Adam, I think if you qualify in the top 6, you should be in good position. But if you qualify mid pack towards the back, I think you could definitely see some chaos. So for our championship contenders, Palou, Pato O'Ward, Scott Dixon, Josef Newgarden up front in the championship, I think those drivers definitely need to have a good qualifying, or they could definitely be, as they like to say on the NBC Sports broadcast, they might be in the danger zone. And if you're stuck in the back, you have 150 seconds to push the pass at 15-second intervals to try to get to the front or hold off and stay up front. One driver racing this weekend and the fan favorite is Elio Castroneves, the 2021 Indy 500 champion, also the newest member of the 4-time club. He'll be back racing full-time for the IndyCar Championship next year with Meyer Shank Racing in the number 06 Honda. Meanwhile, the current points leader has problems this weekend with a 6-spot grid penalty. Palou made an unapproved engine change after a recent test session at Portland International Raceway, and he'll start 6 places behind his qualifying position. And he's currently 39 points ahead of Pato O'Ward, his closest rival in the championship, who hit the wall Friday in practice. For drivers beside Palou and Pato O'Ward, who needs a Music City miracle performance to help their chances at winning the championship?
I believe everyone at Andretti Autosport needs a Music City miracle, if you ask me. They all haven't had a season that they really were for that they thought they were going to have. Alexander Rossi hasn't really been in contention. Ryan Hunter-Reay, Andretti Autosport needs to find a way to get some horsepower in those cars this weekend. But I believe if they start in the top, at least in the top, as be a part of the Firestone Fast Nine, I think they have a good shot to start have a good strong finish. As we know, the pit road is curved, kind of reminds you of Toronto. So right now, for me, it's got to be everybody at Andretti Autosport. They all need a Music City miracle.
My pick is actually something that is quite surprising, considering it's the winner of the last race, Josef Newgarden. We've seen him 3 times this year as well be denied victories, which he's been demanding throughout the race. He's had overtakes in Detroit. He got it passed as well in the next race. It's very close together that he's running 4th in the championship, 315 points. He's not that far behind Alex Palou, as we usually said. He's got that grid penalty. He's on 384. I know Ward hit the wall as well, so he's lost some practice time as well. But Newgarden, I think, hasn't yet this season had a very stable year. He's been very much up and down. So Newgarden needs to have a great weekend, and he needs to have some wins. And the second driver I picked at the list is actually 7th in the standings on 260 points. And it's the driver who led the first practice session yesterday, Colton Herter. Colton has had a very fast start to the season as well. He's certainly come out of the gate kicking this year as well. And with his dad, Brian, on his radio communications as well as his race engineer as well, this is the type of circuit that they both enjoy. Just look back at Brian's career as well. He always was in favour of the street circuits. But still, it's looking to be a good one. And I've really got a good feeling that Colton is going to win this weekend and he can get his championship back up on the right string. And if not, I'm sure Brian will have something to say about it.
Yeah, I think Colton Herter certainly has a shot this weekend to win, and you were talking about Josef Newgarden as well, and that's exactly who I had in mind as well, who needs a Music City miracle. And yes, he won the last race before the summer break at Mid Ohio, but before that, he lost out on opportunities to win. He was leading in the late stages in Detroit until he was passed by Pato O'Ward in the closing stage, and he dominated Road America. It looked like he was going to win that, and he had a mechanical issue in the closing laps, and that was super unfortunate for Joseph. And I think he's definitely the one driver who has a lot of momentum heading into the Music City Grand Prix, and this is actually his home track in Nashville, Tennessee. So he's the hometown guy. Won the last race, has the most momentum coming in, and he can definitely leave the Music City with the most momentum as well. And the championship momentum can certainly swing into his favor. And everyone's been talking about how challenging the track is with the very bumpy surface. Nashville probably not as bumpy as Baltimore. Remember that track with the crazy chicane going over the railroad tracks, or even years beforehand when they raced on the streets of San Jose. Probably not that bumpy, and including the Korean War Memorial Bridge that makes the long, wide open straightaways for high speed. The north end is a tight and narrow portion, giving vibes of the Baku street circuit, as Adam mentioned. And the weather, it's going to be hot tomorrow, 93 degrees. The forecast for tomorrow with 50% humidity. And we saw in Detroit, that track is very bumpy, and it really punished the drivers for their doubleheader with the high heat in the cockpits. How physically demanding do you think Nashville will be in comparison to Detroit or any other street circuits IndyCar's raced at in recent years?
I think this is going to be one, if not the most demanding, because we've had an unusual situation. We've come to a new track and it feels like an old track. As you say, it does feel like we're across the railroad tracks once again as well. It's got vibes of Vancouver as well, back in the kart days with its tight, twisty segments as well in the first couple of corners. It's got vibes of even back at Sao Paulo as well, when the 2012 race where the first corner, nobody could seem to get the braking zone right. There was a horrible bump down the start-finish straight as well, and just threw the cars up. And I've seen as well, we saw over the train tracks as well, was it Baltimore? It's just annoying that the cars get launched so easily, and that's what we've seen this weekend already. Going over that Korean Veterans Bridge, it's bumpy when you enter from the tarmac that was put down back onto the concrete that's over the bridge, and the bridge is bumpy. You're flat out over. Don't forget, you're going up altitude as well on the bumps. You saw yesterday on board with Colton Herter, his head was flying around in the car. He couldn't control it. He couldn't keep it safe. The drivers were describing that the steering wheel was literally flying out of their hands. There's no power steering in these cars. It's literally coming all from up here as well. So it's going to be very muscular and physically demanding in that respect, that they're going to get tired quickly as well, because you've got two flat out segments of the bridge. One of them you get to sweep it nice, and it's a nice 90-degree left-hander. The others you've got to go back up through nicky-tighty sections as well, like in Baku. So that's going to be even more demanding as well, because more of that, more driving around, more physical. The heat, that's going to be even worse, because you're going to be already sweating from the movements of your arms constantly. You're going to be feeling it. You're going to be feeling nauseous as well. The drivers are going to stock up about 2 to 3 litres of fluids before this one as well. As you said, track temperature is going to be hotter as well than the 93 degrees that is predicted as well. So the tires, they've got to come into the factors. Your brain's going to be working overload in order to keep on the fuel saving. You've got to keep on with the tire saving. You've got to keep on with making sure you're not in pack racing as well over that bridge. And if you have an accident, then you've just got to keep your fingers crossed that no one's going to hit you, and your body automatically tenses up. So that's going to be even more physically demanding if that happens for drivers. So I'm thinking when we see a crash, it might take a little bit of extraction time, because you're going to be very seized up, like you've got a lot of cramp. So yeah, it's going to be very, very demanding. But this racetrack, brand new, feels old. Doesn't it just feel like IndyCar's back to its roots? It's beautiful, this track. I love it.
For me, I believe this will be the most physical demanding race that IndyCar has all year long. Like you said, Josh, the brain's going to be, you're going to have to work a lot. And I can remember hearing Colton Herter on his onboard lap yesterday, and he was, you're going to have, I believe, a lot of drivers are going to have a lot of physical, a lot of drivers that do a lot of exercise, I believe will gain the most, because it's an overall demanding street circuit. I'm glad it takes me back to my roots when I started watching Indy cars, and it's just an overall really cool track. This year you've had NASCAR race at the Super Speedway, the SRX Series race at the fairgrounds. Now here IndyCar running through the streets. It's gonna. I don't know who's gonna win tomorrow, but I believe it'll be the most physical demanding track that the IndyCar races at all year long.
Yes, it's certainly quite a unique track. Can't wait to see the cars going over the Korean War Memorial Veterans Bridge. And below the bridge, they actually have a dive team in case the worst happens. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But I've been talking with my family about it, and I told them it's better to have than not have if the worst case scenario happens. But I think the chances of a driver going into the water during the race is highly unlikely, but certainly not impossible. So I'm really glad that IndyCar is prepared for that scenario if it comes to that. And tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, be sure to catch the Music City Grand Prix on NBCSN immediately after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Watkins Glen International. And be sure to comment with who you think will win the race tomorrow for our pick a winner. And tomorrow we'll discuss the race on Grid Live Wrap Up.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends. on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.